now things are getting spicy. We're down to one more episode of Ray Donovan Season 6. And this week we have Never Gonna Give You Up. Take one good guess on what that title is referencing to. I don't need to say more, so let's proceed with the episode. So after seeing how Bridget is stolen, or at least is now gone from the place that she was held up in last week's episode, basically Ray and the others drive down the highway, they pass the bartendant, and so on and so on. Like the bar where both Mac and Ray basically met up and chilled for a good while Ray recovered in New York after his incident. And it's just this really, really cool shot. I mean, it's not like the one where it's like the dolly shot of having the camera pointed upwards and then focusing on Ray as he's walking through New York. I mean, it's different from that. I mean, it's hard to explain this shot, seeing as how this episode's just fresh in my memory by the time of recording this. But it's basically, we see an angle of the highway from inside the car. The camera backs away from it and pans over to see the shadowy body of Ray Donovan in there. That shot alone, just makes me love just the perfect touch right there. But yeah, he winds up passing the bartendant, whom is standing outside, as the bartendant calls up Rand and tells him that Ray and the group are going over to the house of Mac's home, which of course leads into both Mickey and Ray dropping in to figure out, get some clues and whatnot, while Daryl basically sits in the car and waits for something to happen, whether or not he has to call, or possibly Rand may come over by some pure coincidence, which is what happens. Rand gets inside, Daryl follows him to, Daryl goes in to try and help to make sure that Rand doesn't kill the rest of the Donovans, because Ray and Mickey are the main hub of the Donovan clan. And so basically Rand tries to subdue Daryl, but Ray sees this and basically kills him. Multiple shots to the chest, and fall back and plummet onto the chair. But as Ray goes to the bar after realizing that the attendant that he saw outside called Rand, well, he's just standing outside smoking a cigar, and then once they pass by, he calls Rand. He goes back. Ray basically goes to the bar, kicks the bartender's ass, and then winds up finding out through the news that the recording that purportedly Samantha didn't copy as a sincere promise, she instead said, "Screw it, I'm going to leak this stuff over the internet." Truer words couldn't have been said. It leads into our next scene, which focuses on how basically Ferrati, the current one trying to run for mayor, basically acts dumb in front of Ray, seeing as how tries to act as if he doesn't have a clue on what happened. But he knew already. Basically calls up Mac and tells him why did he do that. Afterwards, afterwards, Mac calls Ray up to set up a meetup location, talk about where Bridget's being held at. Because, from what we know, basically, it could be Mac's doing, but he's an innocent guy. He wouldn't be caught dead in these situations, and yet he's caught up in these situations because of his peers. So what happens? Well, actually, in between, before we get to that. Essentially, as we saw in last week's episode, Bunchy gets arrested by the FBI, and so now he's in a sort of an interrogation room, and this agent is trying to force some stuff out of him, but of course Bunchy isn't, not to be puns about this, but Bunchy doesn't want to bunch. Yeah, sick joke, I know, but basically he won't bunch, he won't say a thing on where Mick's location is, and he wouldn't even know anyways after seeing as how Mick basically ran off to help rescue his granddaughter. So he's not going to say a single thing. And in the meantime, while Smitty and Sandy are sitting out, basically keeping a hold of their guy that Smitty got a hold of in last week, basically, Sandy basically gives Smitty some little bits and pieces of life, basically advice for his future with Bridget. And basically to see Sandy give Smitty and tell him that he's got a terrible name, that Smith wouldn't work out so well. Might be like Mr. and Mrs. Smith in any sort of direction. And to get back into the plot of this story, Ray drops by where Mac is sitting at, and Mac basically explains how most of his time nobody was his friend, how his life was terrible, how no one was ever his friend. I already said that before, but basically the big thing is Mac not sees Ray as only his friend, but also on a deep emotional level, he sees Ray as a brother. It's like one side of the spectrum that basically gives Mac hope in life and kept him going for this long. Basically, that's where Mac tells Ray to follow him to where Bridget's being held at. Deteriorate for a bit on this one. The man that both Mickey and Daryl gather up, basically the guy they shot at while they were in the house trying to find Bridget, basically he skims out of the house, basically bleeding, and just as they catch up to him and try to get something out of him, he dies. Nothing more, nothing less. From there, Terry is actually picked up by the interrogator, the FBI agent, to try and get Terry over to try and convince Bunchy to confess. And we won't see what happens until later on. Back to the main storyline. So Mac winds up dropping Ray off at the hotel where Bridget's being held at. Well, technically it's not a hotel, it's a motel, but who can tell the difference? I promise I wouldn't do that again, so let's continue on with that portion. Essentially, Ray winds up going up to the hotel room and frees Bridget from her trap, where she's being held at, which is tied down into a bathroom of some kind, which is interesting. But basically, Max sits outside, calls up his wife, says his final goodbye, holds up his weapon, and, you know, he in the end commits suicide. Domino effect, man. It gets to everybody. After that, basically, Ray gets Bridge and drives off from the motel, with Ray knowing that Mac basically died and Bridget knowing by this point. So they don't say a single thing about it. Not even go to look, for Pete's sake. It's just a tough subject to even talk about. I won't, and I won't derail like I said. So in another sideline other than probably like one more of these things, I don't know. But basically, I'm going to have a fun time with this. Judge Scholl, like Scholl, not school, Scholl. Oh, with the way I spelled his name, it sounds like school. But basically, the judge drops by to meet up with Ferrati, and basically Ferrati just doesn't care. He's just cocky about his win, despite the fact that a lot of what has been posted on the news, thanks to Samantha, is now out and about. He's still cocky of his win. He doesn't give a shit. We're now on the home stretch. Let's hope for the best. So as Ray is driving back to Sandy's home, Bridge basically winds up asking Ray again about his suicide in the beginning of the season 6 premiere, but also the season 5 finale, because they're both tied together. But again, Ray doesn't want to talk about it. He just says, call up Smitty. I'm pretty sure he wants to hear your voice again. And so she does that. Well, in the meantime, Smitty wind up getting the call from Bridge to make sure that she's alright and everything. And as he hangs up, basically, their kidnapper winds up escaping from his struggle and winds up trying to strangle Sandy, but Smitty winds up intervening fun word. And Smitty tries to intervene with the kidnapper and basically kills him. Like, no knockout, he grabs something and kills him, stabs him. Another body to send to the burner. Too bad Dexter Morgan isn't still around to help the Donovans out. It's not like anybody cared about the finale of Dexter anyways. So basically, Terry drops by the headquarters, or at least one of the divisions of the FBI, to try and talk Bunchy into confessing. But Bunchy basically says he gives up. He doesn't want to talk anymore. All of his 30 years of life, it has been spent. He doesn't want to do it anymore. Which, of course, leaves Terry a bit disappointed. Because, well, you know. As this happens, basically the agent comes out, talks to Terry a bit, and both of them set up a deal where if Terry can get his hands on Mickey, then possibly they can let Bunchy off with a little bit of a slap of hand, but still, he has to go through some little sort of punishment. From there, they drop by Sandy's house, and Ray finally confesses on why he jumped the bridge in the beginning of season 6 and in the finale of last season. So he confesses, he apologizes, doesn't know what to do with himself because at this point he's like Bunchy, an emotional train wreck. Because at this point, Ray is pretty much like Bunchy, an emotional train wreck right now, and his constant life is nothing but a living hell without Abby there. So, yeah, that's something he's got to now have to deal with the rest of his life. But Bridge basically tells him that he needs to get some sort of help in some fashion. And from there, Bridge winds up seeing Smitty, both of them reunite, and Terry, Daryl, and Sandy basically talk about what they're going to do with the bodies. One of them points out about putting them in the ocean, much like how they do it in Dexter. But that's basically it for this episode. That's it for Never Gonna Give You Up, Never Gonna Let You Down. Sorry. That's it for Never Gonna Give You Up. It's getting hot, it's getting big. We're down to one more episode, and then I have to say a goodbye to doing these weekly Ray Donovan videos. But I hope to see you guys during the Movie Fridays portions. But yeah, I'm never gonna give you up. Basically, it's not like a big war against them. It's just a small minority, but still, it was big, it was impactful. The Donovans sort of got what they got in the end, basically rescuing Bridget from her situation. It's sad to see Mac ending his life prematurely, but in the end, that's sort of how it goes, how all of life goes. It's an ever-going struggle, and it's not easy, and it's Just something I don't want to speak about. It's... But yeah, not only was it big and emotional, but it still had its funny moments, but in the end, it really leaves you thinking, is the final episode of Ray Donovan gonna end with the big sorrowful endings that we've normally seen this season, and we don't wind up getting another ending like we did in season 4, where it looks like in the end where it looks like they all live happily ever after, like a fairy tale? I don't know. It can go down one of those paths. But let's say for now, and this is going to be a big yes on it, is that it's going to gear towards the bad ending. The one where Ray's a train wreck, something happens, all that breaks down. Like, during one of the finales, Ray's just sitting down, almost looking into the camera. He's like, "Help me! Someone help me!" Like, that was fun. Just to see that ending in a Ray Donovan episode. But yeah, never gonna give you up. I'm glad that the Donovans managed to save Bridget's life and everything. Sad to see Mac go. Samantha is now gonna have to face the wretched hands of Mr. Donovan. Ray has to figure out what to do with Ferrari now, and all this crazy stuff that's going to happen in next week's final episode of the season, not the series itself. But it's big, it's going to be grand, huge. It better end how we should expect it. Though I expect that Ray is basically going to rain down on Samantha. He's not going to hold back in the slightest. But that's all I have to say about it. So, yeah, never gonna give you up. What did you think about it? And your thoughts are, let me know. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week for the new Ray Donovan episode. Even if that means it's the final episode. But hey, in the end, I at least get to give you guys the next lineup of MLP episodes sometime in spring, as well as the monthly movie Fridays on the list of my 40 favorite movies, as well as my chance to work on other projects I've got going on right now. So, thoughts are never going to give you up. Leave them below. I'll see you guys next week for the final Ray Donovan episode. And if you want to see what you interest are in this channel, then look here to see more. And as always, I'm the Ferb Guy, and I'll see you guys for next week.